My name is Natalie, and at 32, I finally bought my dream home in a Chicago suburb after 8 years of saving. My parents always praised my independence, while my younger brother, Jake, coasted through life on their dime. Last Sunday, our family dinner took an unexpected turn when Jake announced he was moving in with me. The smile never left my face as I dropped my bombshell. Before I get into how I turned the tables on my entitled brother, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Give this video a like if you've ever had to stand up to family who took you for granted. Growing up in suburban Chicago, our middle-class family seemed picture perfect. My parents worked hard, my dad as an accountant, my mom as a second-grade teacher. We had everything we needed, but luxuries had to be earned. At least, that was the rule for me. My brother, Jake, who is 3 years younger, operated under a different set of rules. As a kid, I had to save my allowance for weeks. While Jake would throw a fit in a store and walk out with a new toy, my parents called him sensitive and said he needed extra support. This pattern continued through our teenage years. I worked 2 jobs the summer before college to save for textbooks, while Jake spent his days playing video games. My parents helped me move into my dorm but made it clear that my education was mostly my responsibility. I took out loans and worked part-time for 4 years to make ends meet. Jake, on the other hand, got a free ride to the same university. 2 years later, he flunked out after 3 semesters, having spent more time partying than studying. Instead of consequences, my parents paid for him to attend community college, which he also dropped out of. This became the pattern of his adult life. After graduating with my business degree, I worked my way up at a real estate firm, eventually becoming a full agent. Every commission check was a step closer to my own home. Jake, meanwhile, bounced between jobs. He got fired from a bartending gig for giving away free drinks, was dismissed from a cell phone store due to inventory issues, and couldn't be bothered to study for his insurance licensing exam. Each failure came with an excuse: bad management, a toxic workplace, never his fault. My parents continued to support him financially. They paid his rent when he was short, which was most months. They bought him a car when his died, claiming he needed transportation for a job search. They even paid off his credit card debt twice, lecturing him about responsibility, while simultaneously removing all the consequences of his irresponsibility. At 29, after 7 years of dedicated saving, I had enough for a down payment on a modest house. The market was hot, but my real estate background gave me an edge. When a charming 3-bedroom craftsman-style home came on the market, I pounced. The asking price was at the very top of my budget, but I fell in love with the built-in bookshelves, original hardwood floors, and the bay window that let in the perfect morning light. Securing the mortgage was stressful. As a single woman, the bank scrutinized my finances more than I expected. Every dollar I had ever earned seemed to be questioned and verified. The day I signed the final papers and got the keys, I cried in my car for 10 minutes. This house wasn't just a building. It was physical proof that my hard work and sacrifices had meant something. My parents attended my housewarming party and seemed genuinely proud. It was one of the few times my accomplishments were celebrated as much as Jake's mediocrity was accommodated. Jake came 3 hours late, brought no gift, and spent most of the time complaining about his latest relationship drama. When he did acknowledge my new home, it was to ask if I'd let him host a party there since his apartment was too small. I politely declined, which led to a week of sulky texts about how I'd become stuck up. The next 2 years were blissful. I painted every room, planted a garden, and slowly furnished the place with pieces I loved. The mortgage payments were steep, and unexpected repairs sometimes strained my budget. But I managed. My home was my sanctuary. Meanwhile, Jake continued his pattern of instability. He moved in with a girlfriend, then back to his apartment. When they broke up, he quit another job because his boss didn't respect his creative vision. Every family gathering featured a new Jake drama, with my parents wringing their hands but never requiring him to change. Last month, Jake lost his most recent job, again due to inventory discrepancies. The same week, his landlord informed him that his lease wouldn't be renewed due to multiple noise complaints and late payments. At 30 years old, my brother was unemployed and facing potential homelessness. I heard about these developments from my mother, who called to lament how unfair the world was to her baby boy. The conversation ended with a strange comment about how family needs to stick together. I thought nothing of it at the time, but if I had been paying closer attention, I might have seen the signs earlier. The first hint of something unusual came in the form of 3 separate phone calls from my parents in a single week. Each call referenced vague family matters that needed discussion. Then came the strange text from Jake. After months of minimal contact, he suddenly wanted to know about my internet provider, which bedroom had the best natural light, and if my neighbors minded loud music. When I asked why he needed this information, he replied, "No reason," with a smiley face emoji. My suspicions grew when he asked for the dimensions of my spare bedroom, which I used as a home office. I dismissed his odd questions as Jake being Jake. That week was particularly stressful. I had a high-maintenance client looking at luxury properties in the Gold Coast, and my boss made it clear that keeping her happy was a priority. To compound matters, a small leak under my kitchen sink escalated into a major plumbing issue. The plumber delivered the bad news with a sympathetic grimace. Fixing it would cost over $7,000. Money I didn't have. This financial blow came on the heels of replacing the water heater and dealing with electrical issues. My charming, century-old craftsman was revealing its true nature as a money pit. In a moment of pragmatism, I called my financial advisor, Sandra. She had gently warned me that I was stretching myself too thin now. She pointed out what I had been avoiding. I was slowly drowning. "Have you considered selling?" she asked. "The market is hot right now. You could walk away with enough to pay off your debts and have a healthy down payment. For something more manageable, the thought of selling my dream home felt like failure. But Sandra's numbers were right. Continuing on this path would lead to financial disaster. That evening, I contacted a colleague, Melissa, who specialized in residential sales in my area. She confirmed what Sandra had suggested. I could list the house significantly above what I had paid for it and likely get multiple offers. "Would you be comfortable with a quick sale?" she asked. "I have a couple who just lost out on a bidding war for a similar property. They're motivated buyers with financing in place." The universe, it seemed, was sending me a clear message. The next day, the couple Melissa mentioned toured my house. By that evening, they had submitted an offer 5% above my asking price with a single condition: they needed to close quickly within 30 days. In return, they were willing to let me rent back the property for a nominal fee while I found a new place. The decision was both heart-wrenching and obviously correct. I accepted the offer and signed the preliminary paperwork the following day. The inspection went smoothly, and by Wednesday, all contingencies had been removed. The sale was moving forward. Closing was set for the following Thursday. Just one day before the next family dinner, I would walk into Sunday's meal with the deed transfer complete and a certified check in hand. I chose not to tell them about it yet. I wanted to process my own feelings before dealing with my family's reactions. For once, this was about me and my needs. Sunday dinners at my parents' house had been a tradition for decades. Mom always made comfort food and Dad opened a special bottle of wine. This particular Sunday, something felt different. Mom had set the table with the good china and a bottle of champagne chilled in an ice bucket. "There she is," my father called from his recliner. Right on time as always, our reliable Natalie. My mother hugged me. "Sweetheart, you look tired. Work keeping you busy?" I replied vaguely. "Just a demanding client and some house issues." They kept checking the time and the front window, waiting for Jake. At 5:20, he strolled in, dressed in a new button-down shirt and khakis. He even carried a gift bag and a bottle of wine. "Just wanted to contribute to the celebration," he said with a wink that sent a chill down my spine. Whatever was happening here had been orchestrated in advance, and I was the only one not in on the plan. At the dinner table, the awkwardness continued. My mother had placed Jake at the head of the table. "So, Natalie," she began, "that big, beautiful house of yours must feel awfully empty with just you in it. All that extra space going to waste." "It's just the right size for me, actually," I replied. "But surely you get lonely," she persisted. My father jumped in. "Family should stick together during tough times. We need to support each other." Jake nodded sagely. "Absolutely, family first, right?" The meal continued in this vein with pointed comments about my house and Jake's recent bad luck. As my mom served homemade apple pie, Jake cleared his throat and stood up. "I think it's time we let Natalie in on the good news," he announced, reaching for the champagne. "To new living arrangements," he declared, raising his glass. "Starting next Saturday, I'm moving into Natalie's house just until I get back on my feet." Of course, the silence that followed felt eternal. My parents beamed at Jake, then turned expectant smiles toward me. Jake's expression was a mixture of entitlement and smug satisfaction. "Mom and Dad said the spare bedroom would be perfect for me," he added. "They figured since you're never home anyway, you wouldn't even notice me." My mother nodded encouragingly. "It's the perfect solution, honey. Jake needs a stable place. And you have all that extra space," my father added. "It's not safe for a young woman to live alone these days." I looked at their expectant faces. They had made plans to insert Jake into my home without even consulting me. In that moment, a strange calm settled over me. The anxiety I had felt about telling them I had sold the house evaporated. replaced by a clear certainty that I was making the right decision for myself. That's an interesting plan, I said, my voice steady. There's just one small problem with it. What's that, honey? My mother asked, her smile faltering slightly. I reached for my purse and removed the manila envelope containing the closing documents. I sold my house last week. The new owners take possession in 30 days. The silence was profound. My mother's hand flew to her throat in a gesture of shock. My father's eyebrows drew together in confusion. Jake's mouth literally hung open, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips. You're joking, right? Jake finally broke the silence. I placed the deed transfer and closing documents on the table. The inspection was completed on Tuesday. All contingencies were removed Wednesday, and we closed yesterday afternoon. The new owners are a lovely couple with a 5-year-old daughter, who is very excited about the backyard swing set. My father picked up the papers. Natalie, why would you do something like this without discussing it with your family first? This is a major life decision. The irony wasn't lost on me. You mean the way you all discussed Jake moving into my house before informing me? I replied. That's completely different, my mother interjected. We were trying to help both of you by volunteering my home as a landing pad for Jake without asking me? How is that helping me exactly? The calm I had felt moments ago was beginning to crack. Jake snatched the papers from my father. You did this on purpose, he accused. You heard I needed a place to stay, and you sold your house to spite me. Not everything is about you, Jake, I said, keeping my voice level. I sold my house because it was becoming a financial burden. The plumbing issues alone were going to cost $7,000 to fix. Money I don't have, because unlike you, I don't have parents who bail me out of every financial crisis. That's unfair, Natalie, my father said sternly. We've always supported both our children equally. A bitter laugh escaped me. Equally, Dad? I worked 2 jobs to pay for college while you gave Jake a free ride. I saved for 8 years to buy that house while you paid Jake's rent whenever he came up short. You bought him a car when his died, but when my transmission went out last year, all I got was advice to take the bus. Your brother has had a harder time finding his path, my mother defended, tears welling in her eyes. He needs more support. And whose fault is that? I challenged. You've been supporting his bad decisions for so long that he has never had to face consequences or grow up. I don't have to listen to this sanctimonious bullcrap, Jake said, pushing back from the table. You've always thought you were better than me. I don't think I'm better than you, I said quietly. I just made different choices and worked hard for what I had. I corrected myself, the reality of selling my beloved home hitting me again. Well, your choices have screwed me over, Jake spat. I already gave notice at my apartment. I have to be out by the end of the month, and now I have nowhere to go, my mother gasped. Jake, you already gave notice? We said to wait until after we talked to Natalie. I was being proactive, Mom, he said, looking slightly abashed. Why pay rent for another month when I could move in with Nat? You assumed I would just welcome you with open arms, I said, the full extent of his entitlement dawning on me. You made a life decision based on access to my house, which you never bothered to ask me about because you would have said no. Jake shouted. You have always been selfish. Enough, my father said, his sharp command silencing the room. This is getting us nowhere, Natalie. Is there any way you can back out of the sale? I stared at him in disbelief. Are you seriously asking me to cancel a legal contract so Jake can have a free place to crash? After I just told you I needed to sell for financial reasons, the sale is final, I said firmly. And even if it wasn't, I wouldn't cancel it for this reason. Jake is 30 years old. He needs to solve his own housing crisis. Jake stood up. Thanks for the support, sis. Really feeling the family love right now. He stormed toward the front door. Jake, wait, my mother called, rising to follow him. Let him go, Mom, I said warily. The front door slammed. My mother sank back into her chair, tears flowing. How could you do this to your brother? He's going to be homeless. He is not going to be homeless. I countered. He has options. He could find a roommate, rent a studio, or even stay with you and Dad temporarily. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably at this last suggestion. Well, we would offer, of course. But your mother just converted Jake's old room into her crafting space. You still have the guest room, I pointed out. That's more of a storage space now, my mother said quickly. Besides, Jake needs his independence. Just not enough independence to find his own housing solution, I observed dryly. My father sighed heavily. Natalie, try to understand. We are just trying to help Jake get on his feet. You have always been so capable. Jake struggles in ways you never did because you never gave him the chance to develop those skills, I replied. Every time he faces a consequence, you swoop in and fix it for him. How is he ever supposed to learn? We are his parents, my mother said defensively. That is what parents do. No, Mom, I said gently. That's what enablers do. Real parental love means preparing your children for the real world, not shielding them from it forever. The conversation continued in circles with my parents, alternating between guilt trips and suggestions for how I could still accommodate Jake. Each suggestion made it clearer that in their eyes, my resources would always be viewed as a potential safety net for Jake. After an hour, I gathered my purse and the closing documents. I love you both, but I can't keep having the same conversation. Jake is an adult, and his housing situation is not my responsibility. I hope you'll help him find a realistic solution, but I need to focus on my own transition right now. My father walked me to the door in silence as I turned to say goodbye. He surprised me with a tight hug. I'm proud of you, he whispered, even when I don't understand your decisions. It was a small but significant acknowledgement, with tears threatening. I hurried to my car and drove home, the weight of the evening heavy on my shoulders. The days following the disastrous family dinner were filled with a barrage of texts and calls. Jake predictably led the charge with angry texts, accusing me of ruining his life. I already told everyone I was moving to your neighborhood, one message read. Now I look like an idiot because my own sister would rather sell her house than help me out. I resisted the urge to be sarcastic, keeping my replies brief and factual. I sold my house for financial reasons. Your living situation is separate from my decision. My parents employed a different tactic, attempting to negotiate. What if we help with the down payment on your new place? My mother said on one of her daily calls. Something with an extra bedroom for Jake, just for 6 months. Mom, that's not the solution. I explained for the 100th time, I'm downsizing, intentionally to reduce my financial stress. Adding Jake to my living situation would add more stress, not less. Even extended family members began to weigh in. My aunt called to express her disappointment, and a cousin sent a lengthy email about how his brother had lived with him during a rough patch. Neither acknowledged that those arrangements were mutual agreements, not unilateral declarations. Throughout this pressure campaign, I continued preparing for my move. The certified check from the sale sat in a new savings account, providing a financial cushion I had never experienced before. Working with a different colleague, I began viewing apartments and small condos in more affordable neighborhoods. After years of stretching myself thin to maintain the dream house, the prospect of a simpler living situation was surprisingly appealing. A modern condo with no maintenance responsibilities and significantly lower monthly costs represented a different kind of freedom. One afternoon, while signing the lease on a charming one-bedroom apartment, I got a text from Jake. We need to talk, coming over after work. When I arrived home, his car was already in my driveway and he was sitting on the front steps. Nice of you to let me know you were coming, I said, unlocking the front door. The living room was half-packed, with labeled boxes stacked against the walls. Jake looked around, the reality of my move apparently hitting him for the first time. So, you're really going through with this, he said, as an accusation. The house is already sold. Jake, the new owners take possession in 24 days. What did you want to talk about? Mom and Dad said I should apologize for how I acted at dinner, he admitted, dropping onto the sofa. So, sorry about that, I guess. The half-hearted apology hung in the air. Is that all you came to say? No, he said, leaning forward. I came to see if we could work something out. I'm in a real bind here. My landlord isn't renewing my lease, and I have to be out by the end of the month. That's unfortunate, but it doesn't change my situation, I replied, remaining standing. The house is sold. I'm moving to a one-bedroom apartment that barely fits my own furniture, let alone a roommate. What about a loan, then? Jake asked. Just enough for first and last month's rent. I'll pay you back as soon as I find a new job. The familiar pattern threatened to repeat itself. Jake in trouble, family expected to rescue him. Promises of repayment that would never materialize. For a moment, I considered it. The money from the house sale meant I could afford to help him. But then I remembered every previous loan that had become a gift. No, Jake, I'm not going to loan you money, I said firmly. You have had plenty of chances to build emergency savings, but you chose to spend everything you earn immediately. Must be nice to be so perfect, he sneered. Some of us have had bad luck. This isn't about luck, I said. This is about choices and consequences. You chose to violate your lease terms. You chose to spend money on concerts and trips instead of saving. Now you are facing the consequences of those choices, so you're just going to let me be homeless? He said, his voice rising. You have options that don't involve me, I pointed out. You could ask a friend to crash on their couch. You could look for a room to rent in a shared house. Or you could swallow your pride and stay with Mom and Dad temporarily. None of those are real options, Jake insisted. My friends all have small places. Roommate situations are for college kids. And Mom and Dad's house is in the middle of nowhere. Those all sound like real options to me, I said. They're just not as comfortable or convenient as moving into my house would have been. That's the difference here, Jake. You don't want any solution that requires sacrifice or discomfort on your part. You have changed, he accused, grabbing his jacket. I haven't changed, I said quietly. I've just stopped apologizing for having boundaries and expectations. Maybe it's time you changed, Jake. Maybe losing your apartment and job is the wake-up call you need. Whatever helps you sleep at night, he spat, heading for the door. Have fun in your tiny apartment while I figure out how to avoid living on the street. As the door slammed behind him, I sank onto the sofa. The confrontation had been unpleasant but necessary for the first time. I had refused to be drawn into the drama that always surrounded Jake. It felt both terrible and liberating. The next morning, I woke to a text from my father. Your mother and I have been talking. Jake will stay in the guest room until he finds a place. We would appreciate it if you could help us clear out some of the storage to make space for him. It was a small but significant victory for the first time. My parents were stepping up to help Jake in a way that didn't involve imposing on me or enabling his worst habits. Over the following months, a new family dynamic slowly emerged. Jake found an apartment within his budget and committed to his new marketing job. He even started building a savings account. Your brother has a job interview tomorrow, my father announced to me on a phone call. An actual professional position. He asked me to help him prepare for it. That's great, I replied, genuinely pleased. Your mother implemented some house rules, he explained with a chuckle. Rent due on the first of the month, chores assigned weekly, and a curfew. Jake pitched a fit at first, but when we stood firm, he realized we were serious. Mom is charging him rent. I couldn't keep the shock from my voice. Not much, my father admitted, just enough to give him some responsibility. We're putting the money aside to help him with a security deposit when he finds his own place. 2 weeks later, at the first Sunday dinner since our confrontation, the atmosphere was cordial. Jake, dressed in business casual attire, announced that he had gotten the marketing job. It's entry-level, he said with unusual humility, but there's room for advancement. That's wonderful, Jake, I said sincerely after dinner. My mother pulled me into an unexpected hug. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. Your father and I realize now that we haven't been fair to either of you. We expected too little of Jake and too much of you. The acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. Thanks, Mom, that means a lot. Jake found an apartment within his budget in a neighborhood not far from his new job. It was small and far from luxurious, but it was his, earned through his own efforts. When he hosted a modest housewarming party, I brought a plant and a gift card. Thanks for coming, he said awkwardly as I was leaving. I know things have been weird between us. Family is complicated, I replied with a smile, but we're figuring it out. For what it's worth, he added, I get it now. I shouldn't have expected you to sacrifice what you worked for just because I made poor choices. I appreciate that, I said, and for what it's worth, I'm proud of what you're building for yourself. As summer turned to fall, I found myself settling comfortably into my new life. The apartment had become a home, decorated with my favorite pieces from the house. My financial situation had stabilized, allowing me to focus on my career rather than just paying bills. With the proceeds from the house sale invested wisely, I began casually looking at properties again, but with a more realistic perspective. The dream home had taught me valuable lessons about the difference between what I wanted and what I needed, between status and security. When the time came to buy again, it would be with clear eyes and practical expectations. The family dynamics had improved dramatically once we all began to recognize and respect each other's boundaries. My parents no longer expected me to solve Jake's problems, and he no longer assumed he was entitled to my resources. We functioned as adults who chose to support each other in healthy ways. Last month, Jake had even repaid a small loan I had reluctantly given him for car repairs, something that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The amount was less significant than the principal. He was taking responsibility for his obligations. As I signed the purchase agreement for my new townhouse, I reflected on the lessons learned. True family support means encouraging independence, not enabling dependence. By refusing to let Jake use my house as an escape from consequences, I had ultimately helped him far more than if I had given in to family pressure. Material possessions, even dream homes, are poor substitutes for financial security and peace of mind. Setting and maintaining boundaries, though painful in the moment, creates healthier relationships in the long run. Sometimes losing what you think you want opens the door to what you truly need. Selling my dream house had initially felt like failure, but it had created space for a more balanced and fulfilling life. After the closing, I sent a group text to my family. Just signed the papers on my new place. Smaller, smarter, and actually affordable. Housewarming party next month. Jake, I expect you to bring that spinach dip you made for Thanksgiving. My brother's response came almost immediately. Only if you promise not to sell this house the next time I need a favor. The joke, which would have been unthinkable 6 months ago, made me laugh out loud. We had all grown through this experience. Painful as it had been, that evening as I sat on my apartment balcony, I felt a sense of contentment that had eluded me even in my dream house. True security, I had learned, came not from impressive possessions but from wise choices, healthy boundaries, and authentic relationships. The journey had been difficult, but the destination had proven worth every painful step. In losing my dream house, I had found something far more valuable, a dream life built on reality rather than appearances, on wisdom rather than wishful thinking. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that others did not understand but that ultimately proved to be the right choice? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and finding your own path. Share this video with someone who might be struggling with family expectations or financial pressure. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important growth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to make the right decisions for yourself, even when they are difficult.